amusing, and it's a good thing. Yes, let's take a look, golfers, at what the police are doing out there, and maybe we need some reforms.
Yeah, but I'm very glad to see that the Paris Commune is still defending private jets, so that's a good thing.
Exactly.
The world is not totally turned upside down. So, from one rather kind of extraordinary story to another, now the race for the White House. I wish I could have thought of a better segue. And Donald Trump's rally in New York City last night. After spending weeks in Lower Manhattan for his criminal hush money trial, Trump travelled uptown to the Bronx yesterday to make his pitch to an area of predominantly black and Latino voters. There, Trump claimed that the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza, whom he said are probably dead, of course we don't know that, would still be alive if the 2020 election hadn't been stolen from him. He also claimed migrants were overtaking public spaces while speaking from a public park.
Many of the hostages that you're waiting for and everybody's waiting for, those hostages, many of them are dead. Many of them are dead. And it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. But many of those hostages are dead. Some will be alive, but many of those hostages are dead. It's a very serious, horrible thing. It would have never happened if the election weren't rigged. It says right now, you don't have public spaces. They're occupied by migrants in tents. They're coming from so many places. We don't have any idea. In many cases, we don't even know what the language. You have languages that people don't even know about. And we're not talking about just South America countries. We're talking about countries from Africa. I think they're building an army. They had 29,000 people over the last. I think they want to get us from within. I think they're building an army. This is not, it's interesting. Did you see them? They all have tents. They all have gas-fired stoves. I mean, this is not like an illegal immigrant. They're building something. They have something in mind. They cannot stay. We will immediately begin the largest criminal deportation operation in our country's history.
I mean, interesting to hear the cheers from the crowd there, John. And we should point out, the permit had gone in for something like 7,000 people. The Trump campaign is claiming that they had more like 30,000. We haven't heard of any violations of that permit request for 7,000 yet, so that is probably more like the number. But he did manage to bring in Hispanic and black people from the area into that rally. Size may not have been as big as the campaign is saying.
Yeah, it would be the first time the Trump crowd ever exaggerated about crowd size. We should also note...
No, not a thing he does.
Never happened before. We should also note that, yes, he drew a sizable crowd there to a deep blue part of New York City, but if it is 7,000 or so, the Bronx, of course, has a population of 1.4 million, so it's a pretty small percentage still of people who showed up for Donald Trump. But Eugene Robinson, this is, first of all, it's Trump mostly attached to New York City because of the criminal trial, although it is on a couple days hiatus here, but that's why he's been in New York and doing some events. It is making a pitch, though, and the campaign is trying to woo some black and Latino voters, and they can point to some poll numbers saying they're having, at least at this point in the race, a little bit of success. Tell us, though, what you think of what he's saying. Is this something that's actually going to translate into votes in November, or is this just sort of a dissatisfaction of the choices? Maybe they're not, some black and Latino voters not happy with Joe Biden and are just sort of casting about, looking at Trump, looking at third candidates, but will eventually come home.
Well, look, there are a lot of voters across the country, all kinds of voters, who are not thrilled with the choice they have this fall. That said, I think this is more a matter of people coming into the Bronx from elsewhere and people in the Bronx who were kind of curious at the spectacle. I mean, New Yorkers love a show, and he puts on a show. But in terms of what he's saying, what in the world is he saying? He's talking about his pants. He's talking about, all this ridiculous stuff, and it's somewhat entertaining, but it sounds to me. I was looking around last night to try to figure out like how many people actually showed up. It seems to really be in the low single-digit thousands. I mean, maybe not 7,000 from the sources I was looking at. Maybe fewer than that. So I think this is kind of a blip. It's a demonstration project. He's trying to show, I guess, that he's getting some love from African Americans and Latinos. I just don't think this is necessarily going to play one way or the other on the larger canvas of the electorate. I just don't see a big deal.
You know, Gene makes the point that there wasn't really the crowd that probably Trump had hoped for. Doesn't seem to really be the energy either. You know, the Trump show back in 2016, it was something that you tuned into a little bit because it was so freaky. And now he has lost his ability almost to shock because he's said so many horrible things by now. He's running low on material. And so these big events that, you know, previously he could command a news cycle with, it's just he says a couple of insane things and then it just, you know, drops.
Well, speaking of one of the insane things that he has said lately, it's certainly an incendiary claim, is that Donald Trump is now trying to fundraise off a false accusation that suggests that President Biden authorized his assassination during a search of his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, nearly 2 years ago. The former president sent out an email yesterday to members on his mailing list with this subject line: Biden's DOJ was authorized to shoot me. Trump and his allies have pointed to a recently unsealed court filing which describes a policy statement outlining the standard operating procedure by which the FBI is authorized to use deadly force if deemed necessary during any situation when a search warrant is indeed executed. It was not unique to the FBI's search of his Mar-a-Lago property, and it's actually